All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Exceed. This is Gearface. I am joined for the first time. I'm very excited to have Serp on the show. Hi, Serp.
Hello, I am Serp.
Thank you so much for being here. Definitely one of my favorite grass type starters.
Yeah.
Really, really excited to get your perspective today on Yuzuriha, a character that I have been interested in learning basically since I started playing Exceed, back when young Gearface was first joining the community in 2022. I was like, what is this Under Night thing? Oh, this character looks cool. She's got like a sword. That looks fun. Oh, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know if I actually want to learn this. I'm sure it won't come up for another 3 years. And then it didn't. And now I'm here. And that's the
Good
entire
timing.
story. Um, so yeah, we're going to learn about Yuzuriha together. I'm really excited. Serp is an expert. A couple disclaimers before we get started. Number one, I think that you should play Exceed for fun. We're going to be talking about playing Exceed to win on this show. Sometimes those two things line up, sometimes they don't. If the lines of play that we're describing to you don't sound fun, probably don't play that way. You should always play in the way that will keep you playing the game longer. And if the optimal way to do it means that you play Exceed less, it means that you're not going to get as good. So play how you want to play. Disclaimer number two is that we don't know everything. Exceed is not a solved game. I don't know anything. Serp knows some things. We average out to knowing like a little bit together. Um, take everything that we're saying with a grain of salt. If you have a line of Yuzuriha that is completely different from what Serp is recommending, that doesn't mean that he's right and you're wrong just because he's on the show and you're not. Tell me all about how the lines differ in the comments. We'll learn together, right? Exceed is a game where you can succeed in a lot of different ways. Yeah, with all of the bookkeeping out of the way, Serp, please tell me a little bit about Yuzuriha.
Sounds good to me. You mentioned yourself that you wanted to play Yuzu when you got into this game. Like, I came into this because I came into Exceed rather because I liked Undernights mostly, and Yuzu is really hard to play over there. So not having to worry about mechanical inputs is definitely an upside here.
That was almost the exact experience for me. I saw the I'm not good at fighting games. I saw the weird uh finger manipulations you have to do to hold charge in
Yeah,
your stance while you're in neutral, and I was like, maybe not. Maybe not for a first character.
yeah. But thankfully here, all you really have to worry about is putting cards engage, which is what Exceed's all about.
Yeah, that's pretty
Uh,
easy. There's not a lot of execution requirements in Exceed, although tabletop simulator jank
yeah,
is sometimes something you do have to worry about.
gotta know how to shuffle for this one.
Yes, absolutely you do. So
Yeah.
so the Yuzu game plan I'm gathering already involves putting stuff in gauge. Um
Yeah, at a high level, yeah.
okay.
Or not even at a high level, but that's what your card suggests you want to do. If you look at her attacks, which I'll go into more detail in later, you have like a lot of copies of normals essentially. Like this is a 5 speed attack that gains advantage, especially assault like. This kind of looks like Spike. This is focus question mark. Um, but in essence, you have like your standard exceed range 3 mix up represented here. Like Assault dives into Spike's blind spot. Spike can kill Focus. Focus kind of trades up against Assault. So Yuzu is a character that kind of just wants to be playing Exceed. You want to like throw mix-ups, you want to win them. It's very honest. And your reward for winning mix-ups is that you get to flip over and then hit them unreactively for 9 damage. So
9 is a lot of damage.
yeah, pretty
The
good.
the threshold, obviously 9 is a lot of damage because you only have 30 life. So you're chunking somebody for about a third of their life every time you hit them with this. But also 9 is a lot of damage because 9 often stuns everything in the world, right? Like
Exactly.
you probably aren't taking any damage back if you hit them that hard.
Yeah, or at least you're probably trading up.
Sure,
So
yeah. If they ran into you first, you're trading up probably pretty massively, in fact. So we've got this suite of tools that look pretty normal like. Um, there are a whole lot of guides out there on this channel, approximately, 95 of them at this point, talking about what you do with the normals and how to play them. So like playing Exceed is we just you Serp, you said that like it's easy, but this is something that
it's
like there's a lot to Exceed. That is
yeah,
probably going to go a little beyond the scope of this guide. But a big part of Yuzu's plan, it sounds like, is just doing that. Is that correct?
that's more or less correct. The tools she has to play Exceed beyond these are a bit strange in the standard Season 6 style, but at the end of the day, she just wants to be like keeping track of the opponent's options, punishing what they're missing, making sure that she doesn't run out of anything. So that
Yeah.
aspect
So
of it, I think, is very Exceed-like.
yeah, really, really general Exceed stuff, just with this extra gas on top where she wants it. So can we kind of start with the character ability?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because there are kind of two halves to Yuzuriha. There's this mix-up side, and then there's the payout side, which I mentioned. So I'll start with the Exceed side because that's probably what you look at first when you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to play Yuzu.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah, there are a lot of words here. Important parts are strike from gauge and +2 power, +1 speed. So basically, as you're playing the game, you get cards in your gauge by hitting the opponent mostly, and then eventually maybe you want to flip over, use this UA, and you'll have, say, an assault. Say you just have these three cards in your gauge. So if you're setting at range 3, then the opponent will have to defend against one of these randomly with your stat bonus. And like on its own, this is a scary mix-up, but if you put like +2, +1 onto them, suddenly this assault like can't be crossed out of, and it trades evenly against sweep and focus.
Right.
This just kills anything slower than it, and it's B2 now. This card just does more damage. Like, essentially, it's taking some mix-up that you have in your gauge and presenting it to the opponent and saying like, just deal with this or take 6, 7, or like 9 damage or
9.
whatever. Yeah. So
And
big numbers, hard to deal with.
and because we kind of have the redundancy of the normals over here, like if I have, this card, and this card in my
Yeah,
gauge, I can still present a meaningful mix-up. I don't need like the exact perfect combo of these 3 cards in my gauge. I can kind of mix and match.
yeah. The shape of the mix-up can vary a lot depending on exactly what your gauge looks like. And the funnier part is that it doesn't even really need to be a mix-up if you don't want it to be. So you have an assault in your gauge. Like, realistically, what do they do about this if it's 6 power and 6 speed?
Yeah, they trade with sweep, and then they don't
Yeah,
have a sweep anymore, and you
now
have
you have advantage.
1, 2, 3, 4 copies of assault to their
Yeah,
2 copies of sweep.
even better, my favorite user line. What if you just have 4 assaults in your gauge?
Just assault, 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 assault.
Yeah, they just
Yeah,
have to have
no,
grasp or something.
that and again, they don't have that many.
Yeah, you
Okay,
definitely have. This is like a small instance of recursion, so to speak. Like you get to use the same attack twice effectively. So in some sense, you definitely have more options than the opponents in like any given vector of the mix-up. And again, you have like multiple copies of each side of that mix-up. So if
sure.
they run out
You
of something, then you can definitely hammer it into them.
you hit this, it goes to gauge. You have the option to hit it again later on. Um, so I notice also as I was reading, you mentioned the important words like +2 power, +1 speed. First of all, those are crazy stats. It bears sort of underlining that, especially in the context of a kit with good power values and strong normals, that's just like really, really strong stuff. I
Yeah,
also noticed that you strike with a random card from your gauge face up.
yeah.
So
So there are two kind of caveats to this ability. The first one is that a random card from your gauge. Well, the face-up part is like again, if they can't deal with the stats, then who cares?
sure,
But there is a chance that your gauge is kind of weird, and maybe there's like a block in there, a grasp in there, and you're at range 3.
right.
So obviously that's not ideal. You'll probably want to try to get, I guess, like for sake of illustration, say like you're at range 2 and your gauge looks like this. I'm sorry, I'm destroying your beautiful layouts.
No, it's all right. No,
Because
put
going
these in any
everywhere.
order you want.
Yeah. So say you're looking at Ryu, you're here, and you're on Exceed side, and for some reason you really want to use your ability, but you have a card that hits at range 1, and the card that doesn't really do anything with these beautiful stats you want to put on it.
Right.
So an easy way to solve this issue is to spend this as force, and now you're here, and now everything hits again.
Okay, sure. And you've got something out of your gauge that was kind of like a dead card.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like the fun part of Yuzu's gauge management minigame is that essentially means that like anything you don't want is free force for you to spend for like the move action, the walk action. She doesn't really have many force costs on boost, but you can even get to do the fun season 6 thing of like I'm here, I say my gauge is like this, I can put something relevant in gauge to revert, and then with her front side UA, which I guess I could talk about now, you can just put something in and exceed again.
Sure.
You can also use
Yeah,
like
and
mail
and,
off.
and swap out gauge for something more relevant, and have a credible mix up again without a
Yeah,
dead card in it. So and
it's very easy to like customize. Yeah,
we keep talking about it like it's a mix up. It is literally face up, right?
yeah,
So it's, and I mean, this might be me quoting Avusonian. Literally yesterday, I had a lesson on Hyde, where a big portion of the conversation was about how Hyde just kind of makes your opponent have the thing. If they don't
Yeah,
have the thing that beats whatever you're doing, they just die. Is there a similar play pattern going on here?
there definitely can be. Again, like in the situation where you just fill your gauge with assaults, just like I'm going to be here and I'm going to gain advantage, so you should have grasp. I hope.
Right. Right.
So you can set up your gauge like that. But again, like Yuzu can kind of be more creative and like you put a sweep here and suddenly like grasp isn't necessarily a safe answer. Just sort of like a 50-50 where the reward is the opponent's dies. Uh, so you can just like take advantage of what the opponent's you think the opponent doesn't have, or you can just like make them get spurter life.
Okay. It
So
it
both are
also
valid.
it also like okay. Actually, what's going on here is that Gearface is kind of stupid and didn't read the last line of text here, which is that the opponent sets their attack first
Oh
and
yeah,
still win
sorry.
speed dies. So yeah, it is face up, but that doesn't matter. There's no card for them to react to yet.
Yeah, I think the only
Okay.
reason that lands there just so they can have a chance to like look at their gauge and contemplate their life before you
Totally.
actually use
Yeah.
it.
It
Yeah.
it is still a mix up. It's not actually like Hyde, where
Yeah.
he's literally striking face up.
Yeah.
Face up metaphorically, as in they know it's coming. So, okay, so I'm throwing a really scary high wire mix up into my opponent. My return on investment for doing that is going to be like, they're going to be hard to stop. They're going to be very high damage if they land. Uh, if I can land a couple of those, I probably just win the game off of the value generated by that. Is that pretty much the Yuzu game plan?
Yep, that is one line you can definitely take.
Okay.
Uh, there is one other caveat I didn't bring up, which is this first line, which is your attacks have clean up, discard your attack. So you can't literally just like throw out assault, it hits, it goes back to gauge and do it again. After using your ability to go, your attacks get discarded. But the way this
It's
is
gone.
phrased, it's a passive effect. So it also applies to attacks you play from your hand.
Oh, okay, sure. That's not part of the action. It's everything that you're doing. So you probably shouldn't stay in this stance for an incredibly long time
Yeah, it's
because
kind of
you're
the
not
standard.
building gauge. Then you're not you can't reshuffle with any of the cards that you hit with later on.
Yeah. So it's kind of a standard season 6 dynamic where like you have a exceed mode that's like gauge negative, except even more so because like you don't even get gauge when you're playing stuff on defense. So you do want to like eventually turn back probably when you don't have anything in your gauge. It's actually like threatening the opponent. Uh it can be a benefit because now if you're on backside, you can block without worries of it going to gauge and like clogging up your epic stats.
Right.
But yeah,
But also
so
you could spend that gauge as force, right? It is a
yeah,
good thing to have things in gauge even if you're not planning to strike with them because that's a force bank you can use for playing the game of Exceed.
yeah. So
Okay.
front side is nice just because you get gauge. And
Right.
I
Okay.
guess we'll look at the front side UI for a second. It's just key charge. It's free gauge.
Add a card from your hand to your gauge if you have more than 4 cards
Yeah.
in your gauge after this Exceed. Interesting.
So like not only
Um,
can you just like put whatever cards are like relevant to whatever you want to build up to in your gauge, you can just like customize it however you want. But also a lot of season 6 characters have to worry about because their backside actions are gauge negative, they have to have like a big stockpile before they flip over. You just get to like basically turn any card you want into an extra copy of Veil off. So
okay, sure. Yeah, you put something in gauge, you Exceed for free. You can preserve your focuses for later, so you don't have to actually use the Veil Off boost.
yeah.
Um, so when I'm using this, uh, I guess first of all, how often do you actually find yourself using her frontside character ability?
Personally, I mostly only use it if I want to like use it as a bailout use case. Just add an extra side to the mix-up, thread in something immediately, and if they like somehow move out of range of my threats, I just flip back on my external third action. You can
Okay.
use it to key charge, but generally your ultras are the way you want to threaten your ultras is kind of strange. Sometimes if you just want to hit that 2 gauge threshold to use this thing, you can like throw something in there, but generally I just prefer doing something to like hit the attack, so I'm like getting value as well as getting into my gauge.
Okay, so you're probably using it to get from 3 gauge to 4 gauge to get the free sort of like action compressed Exceed.
Yeah,
And it's probably to stock a mix up option that like might be difficult to hit with otherwise. Is that fair?
yeah. I think more broadly, you're going to use it to threaten one of your payout options, and the exceed side is probably the most obvious of those. So that's where the 4 gauge threshold is more obvious,
Okay.
more
Sure.
relevant rather.
Yeah, we've
But
only looked at basically 4 cards on this board so far. She
yeah,
does have other things she can do besides hit you with that stuff. Okay.
yeah,
Um so I've got this ability to just build gauge passively. I've got a really scary payout option that I can use, probably in short little bursts to keep me from having to discard my attacks too often. Um, Anything else about the character ability before we actually move on to the kit itself?
I have something that's kind of a mix of both because, as I kind of mentioned it earlier, a weakness of this ability is that if you have a bunch of your cool range 3 options, you flip over, you're saying, I'm going to hit you with one of these. Obvious piece of counterplay, the opponent just moves here,
And
and
just
now you
leave,
don't really
sure.
have anything that hits. Ignore discard.
Right.
Um, so you'd have to move away, or like you'd have to spend a turn moving here. They can probably like play some boosts or something. They can defuse your setup, and eventually you'll just have to accept that you should probably just turn back and play Exceed again.
Right. So
Uh,
the again, this is literally just because this was less than 24 hours ago I was learning about Hyde. But Hyde has a boost in his kit called, hold on a second. Where is it?
Simple Dread.
Yeah, it's called Void Red. You better believe it's called Void Red. It's called Void Red. If you haven't seen the Hyde guide, go take a look. Avusonian did a great job. But exceed, add this to your gauge, take another action. It's revert, but you exceed instead.
Yeah.
Yuzu doesn't have anything like that, where she can threaten her. Oh, right. Yeah, let's talk about Unsheath in a second. I forgot about that card. But for this in particular, right, the ability to do Yuzuriha exceed side stuff, kind of the simulationist fantasy of exceed is that I'm going into my like drawing stance from the game, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something really scary, but it's gonna take me a second to do. So I don't have the Void Red, all right, we're fighting now and I'm in exceed mode thing that Hyde can do. If we're only thinking about this card alone,
Yeah.
the one of the weaknesses of this is that it isn't instantaneous.
Yeah. You're
Oh,
telegraphing yourself. The upside is that you do get to use it multiple times in a row, but if you want to be exactly in your seed mode, you definitely have to like say to your opponents, "I'm about to kill you,"
sure.
which gives them a chance to do something about it.
Okay. You have done an excellent job of foreshadowing this. Do you want to talk about Unsheath right now?
Yeah. So this is another copy of your Exceed UA. If you don't want to give the opponent a chance to react, you just want to hit them with the 9 power now. This says the same thing except without that cleanup clause. Very slight wording that interacts strangely with Wild Swings, but essentially just saying you have to deal with this right now. You don't get a chance to set up. You don't get a chance to move away, and that's like you don't get the benefit of, like you get to exceed, put something in your gauge, make your mix-up stronger. But if your gauge looks good right now, if you've managed it properly, like changing cards, taking move action, then just get to like throw the mix-up, and then the option stays in your gauge if you want to use it again later.
Okay.
It's generally stronger than the Exceed UA, I'd say, because
Okay.
you don't give your opponent that chance to react.
Sure. So the sort of cost benefit analysis that we're talking about here is that this is now strike speed, which mean like, and I mean +2 power, +1 speed now strike is crazy.
Yeah.
That's like borderline illegal. That's almost not allowed on a special boost. Um, the the times I would use this are when my gauge is already stocked and ready to go, and I don't need a threat to complete the mix up. This is for, or rather, I guess this is for when I don't need or don't have the luxury of striking right now, but I need something else in my gauge to actually make the mix up work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Alternatively, if you do plot to use it multiple times in a row, like if the opponent can't really move out of range of your assaults, and you just want to like use 3 in a row. But
sure.
if you just like want to throw one quick thing, even if it's like only one card in your gauge that you think they don't have an answer to because they just got hit by it, because that's how it got into your gauge, then you just like hit them with sweep, it goes here, and she sweep again.
Hit them with sweep again because they couldn't deal with it the first time. They probably
Yeah.
can't deal with it with bonus stats.
And it goes back to your gauge. Just spend your turn preparing because they lost 2 cards, and then you use the other copy.
Got it. Okay, yeah, and that is very similar to the hide line that Avusonian described yesterday of like uh Orbiter, uh Void Red with advantage, Orbiter again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, you just took 11, right?
Yeah.
Um so okay, so I've got my slow but stocks an option. I've got my fast we're fighting right now way to get the same stats. Does Yuzu ever exceed with this, with the actual cost of exceeding, or is it something that you pretty much are always looking to do by using her frontside action?
She definitely can if you want to, because again, it's like another way of curating your gauge. If you have two cards you want to play but one you don't, then it's gone now, and you're on backside.
Okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
exactly the same as we would for changing cards or moving and saying like, hey, I got to get this block out of the gauge. I don't need to move, I don't need to change cards, but I do need to get to my exceed side. A good way to make sure that my gauge is full of scary things is by getting rid of that option that is not scary.
Yeah. Anytime
Okay,
you have a chance to like pay a cost is basically an opportunity to curate your gauge a bit more, which uh
sure,
the way you want to do that changes as the state of the board's updates, essentially like as your HD opponent changes. So it's
sure, sure,
always
sure.
nice to like keep in mind where you want to be and what cards you want to have in your gauge. It's part of what's interesting about Yuzu, I think.
And obviously, the idea that you are spending a cost and getting an upside on top of it by curating your gauge, the cost that you're spending is going towards something that you want to be doing anyway. So it could be that you need more cards, it could be that you need to move, or it could be that you need to be on your exceed side right now. So
Yeah.
it sounds like spend the thing to get it out of your gauge while also moving toward whatever end goal you need to move toward by spending that by paying the cost in the first place. And if that is exceeding, then exceed by uh, paying the gauge cost to exceed like everybody else would.
Yep.
Makes sense to me. Okay. So we got two different ways to reach this big scary payout option. Um, shall we talk just kind of the kit in general, or are there other sort of like end game payout strats that we want to like sort of like higher level umbrella ideas that we want to talk about for Yuzu before we get into her actual options?
I think I do want to talk about the other half of her payout options, which is part of her kit. So like slowly transitioning into that, if that's
Yeah,
fine.
sure.
Because this boost is like another good copy of your UA, but it does have a notable attack on it. So over here, it's another thing that interacts with your gauge. 1 to 3, 1, 4 is slightly below curve. You can EX it to make it on curve. And it seems to only hit for 1 damage. But the text on it says that you choose another random card in your gauge and you get plus X power, where X is the chosen card's printed power. So, say you have like something bad in there. Say this is a bad attack, and you have like a grasp and assault. Then this is like 4 or 5 power. Doesn't seem impressive, but it does say that when you hit, you get to like move 4 or 5 spaces. So as long as it's hitting the opponent, you're probably like sliding out of range of their sweep or whatever they tanked it with.
Sure.
So that's pretty nice.
Even if you are hardly getting any power on it at all, you're it's still like a functional mid speed. It's
Yeah,
probably something in most board states you're going to use to get out of the way of something.
yeah. As long as he gets the hits, so like Snake and Assault into you, which isn't the most common defensive option, but everything else it hits, it's going to be safe from in general.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
especially if you are looking at Yuzu's suite of options and you see assault and assault, it might be tough to defend on curve at range 3 with Yuzu
yeah,
or
definitely.
against Yuzu rather.
So it's a relevant part of mix up in that sense. But let's look at Yuzu's cards at a high level quickly. You have sweep, you have spike. There's dive out there somewhere.
Yeah,
Her
dive
first options,
has
yeah, yeah,
yeah, there's dive has gone to
you
the
found it.
ether.
Her personal options have another copy of spike. This thing, and then it has two cards that have 7 on them.
Sure.
So you have like over a third of your deck hits for at least 6 with this over here. You can go up to 8 damage. So at some point, you don't even really need to slide out of range of their attack because it's getting stunned
You're
anyway.
probably just stunning that focus anyway. Sure.
Yeah. Um, and if this ever gets any bonus stats on it, then it's another way that you're just hitting them for 9.
Okay. Oh, so if over here is in gauge, you strike with
Yeah.
over here, and then something else in the gauge is the big payout thing.
Yeah, that like you have this in your gauge, then your mix up suddenly becomes between like this 9 power sweep or 1 to 3, 10, 5, I think it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh there are big numbers going on here.
Yeah. So that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Is that are all of these things that you're describing pretty feasible for Yuzu to do, or are any of these kind of like uh your opponent needs to cooperate with you a little bit?
It again, it's like based on kind of what you have in your gauge. So depending on how the early game looks, sometimes you just hit them with assault and then you hit them with sweep, and then like you can decide I want to throw this mix up again, or I can just like use this as staple. one of these numbers onto this shape that I think is more reliable to hit.
Sure.
Ultimately, it is like it comes down to mix-ups because this is something you can defend against, especially if you're not exactly at range 3. But if you're paying attention to what you have in your gauge, you're making sure you don't have any like complete studs, then it's something that she definitely is able to throw in consistently.
Okay, makes sense. And then if I do throw this, maybe I throw this pad in the mid game. It's in my gauge later on for the late game if I do want to try to double up and use it with my bonus stats.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, like there are duds with this or with unsheath where I'm not hitting.
Yeah.
Presumably, if I ever have a block in my gauge, if I ever have, isn't there something that has like printed
Yeah.
1 power? Yeah, this guy.
I guess over here itself also
Yeah,
combines
true.
straight into
Right.
itself.
2 copies of over here. If I've ever got anything with incredibly low power in my gauge, I do need to be very careful with over here.
Yeah. So in some sense, the contents of your gauge do telegraph which side of this payout you're going for. But
Okay.
Yeah, it's
But
if you want to
again,
switch, it's usually not too hard to do so.
yeah, and the contents of your gauge are also force that you can spend to play exceed. It's not like you're locked into what you're um holding on to or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Sure.
And again, like you can always just put something in your gauge, like suddenly change what your threat looks like because you have like a 7 power in your gauge, and even if the other thing isn't as high, then the opponent has to be like scared of this blowing them up.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's the
So
case where just a basic key charge is useful.
so Yuzu then over the course of the game is looking to basically either do this, this, or this a
Or
couple of
this.
times. Or
But yeah.
this. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about this one too then.
Yeah. This is the final payoff thing I want to talk about, sorry. But
No, that's all good. No, this is good structure. We can because now we have sort of like a long term plan to work toward, and we can talk
yeah.
about how different cards would benefit different game plans.
Yeah. So this is very similar to over here in that you're taking the power of something in your gauge and stapling it onto the shape. But the difference here is that you get control over it. So the exact wording is X is the printed power of the top card of your discard pile. But this is an ultra, it has a 2 gauge cost, so you get to choose what order you spend your cards in, and suddenly there's a 7 here.
Sure. Okay. So I've got the thing that I just spend this second, and I spend that grasp or that block first, and that's just part of the cost of this card.
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is your one payoff option that basically gives you complete control over which gauge card you're using.
Okay. And I guess by as a trade off to that, the control it's only hitting for 7 instead of like 10.
Yeah, unless you get it in to strike with from unless you get to strike with it from your gauge somehow. But
Oh, true. Yeah.
that's always an option. It's expensive one since you need like the card there, and then you also need 2 other cards to validate it. But
Right. Okay. And it would at that point it would still be a random part of your mix up.
yeah,
Okay.
have to go back to gambling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've got this, both sides of over here, wherever that one went.
Yeah, here.
And then we've got both Unsheath and over here itself, and then Kashu. All of which are going to chunk my opponent for probably 7 damage, maybe, plus or minus a couple here and there, in a way that is very, very hard to react to. I also noticed, maybe we can get back to this card in a little bit, but I also noticed that, like, this doesn't stun.
Yeah, it has some weird interactions, but we can get back to that.
But as a payout option, this is a way to hit my opponent really hard and do a lot of damage to their life total and just beat them. And then the rest of the time, am I just kind of playing regular Exceed and this gauge minigame?
Yeah, you're just trying to like get stuff in your gauge, either by just like winning mix-ups or using your UA if you really have to. And at the end, you can just like steal the game from the opponent using whichever method you prefer.
Okay. And then maybe after we've gone through all of the other cards, we can revisit these 4 things and say, like, all right, what do we want? Like what do the gauge contents say about which payout option we would want to go for? So we can kind of underline that like that. All right, yeah, that's all terrifying. That all sounds like really, really good stuff for me to do to my opponent that I'm sure they'll love. You mentioned before we get off of these cards, you mentioned a couple of little tiny rules interactions. First of all, for Unsheath, you're striking with a random card from your gauge face up. Same as this. With over here, you choose a random card from your gauge. That doesn't mean that that card goes away, right?
Correct.
Okay, so in that way, it's less expensive than Unsheath is.
Doesn't mean it, yeah.
Right, fair. Because it's a mid speed. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of weird nuances here. Um, so yeah, over here reveals a card in your gauge. So this card is going to stay here no matter what. Because it's just like you're saying this card is in my gauge. It's not actually like spending it to use over here. So
Sure.
this is like pretty free throw. It's like worst case you just get stunned and then the attack doesn't go to your gauge.
Right.
Um, Unsheath strikes with random card from your gauge. So if this attack hits, it goes back in. If it misses, it goes away.
Yep.
Notably, if you don't have any cards in your gauge, then you must Wild Swing.
Yes.
Usually doesn't have the best Wild Swings, but like if you're range 3, maybe it'll work out. But because these stats are just like printed on the card, you still get that +2/+1. And that would
Oh,
be a pretty
okay.
good Wild Swing. Although I only
Okay.
have like 2 cards in here, but
So,
um,
so that's not part of the uh it's part of the boost itself. The +2/+1 means
correct.
that my wild swing would have it as well. And you mentioned that there's some little bit of jank that applies to the wild swings on her character card as well.
Yes. So the way this is worded is that if you strike with a random card from your gauge, if you did, your attack has +2/+1. So if your gauge is empty, then you have not struck with an attack from your gauge. You Wild Swing. This does not get the speed bonuses or power
Okay.
bonuses.
And that text is not on Unsheath.
Yeah.
Weird. All right. Well,
Uh,
season 6 gonna season 6 sometimes, I guess.
but it gets even weirder because if you have an Ultra in your gauge and you strike with this face up, but you don't have any more gauge to validate it, then you have struck with the card from your gauge, but you still must Wild Swing, but you do still get the bonus stats.
Right. Right.
So
You fulfilled the condition, just not with the card you're striking with. It reminds me of an Imogen interaction that D showed me a while ago.
mhm,
Yeah, all right. So that might come up, right? Because we are looking to strike from our gauge a couple of times a game as our big payout option. We do need to be aware of that. But
yeah,
it sounds like most of the time, the Imogen payout that D was telling me about several months ago is on a wild swing character. Yuzuriha ain't that.
yeah, you are pretty sensitive to the opponent's attacks because like these are things that have clear lose cases. I'm not the biggest believer in Wild Swings, but like if you have +2/+1, sometimes it just works out.
It
So
just works. Okay, sure, that makes sense. So those are our payouts. We've got big scary things that we can do to hurt our opponent very badly. We have a suite of normals and also normals again that are uh that are going to get us there. And then the rest of the time we're just going to play Exceed. Um,
yeah,
shall we talk about the kit?
yeah. So I
Cool.
guess we can start with those copies of normals because there are very slight differences from the actual things.
Sure.
First thing you might notice, these have long names. I usually just call them like Yuzu Assault or Yeichirin, less
Sure.
words.
Yep. Yeah. You've got Tachi, you've got Kiri, you've
Yeah.
got I think a friend of mine insists on referring to this card as Ed Sheeran,
Oh, I see.
which is I now you have to know that too, I guess.
It might be
Um
useful.
yeah, it might be. Yeah, so all right, yeah, we can just use the last little bit of the card.
Yeah.
Um that said, if you're up against somebody in tournament who's playing Yuzu and they parry or you parry their card, make sure that you get the name exactly right.
True. Or at least say Yuzu Assault instead of Assault, or else people will be very confused.
True. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we've got Yuzu Assault,
Yep.
and you were
Uh,
talking about like minor differences.
yeah. So this hits at the same ranges as Assault effectively. Instead of closing two, it just has it printed on the card. So if you're in some weird situation where you can't move, it will still help you. It does advance 3 instead of closing 2. So this means that if it's hitting, you do cross the opponent up, most likely. And that means you'll probably end up at a different range than where you started. So if you're at range 3, you still end up at range 1, maybe you'll corner yourself. That's not too bad. If you're at range 1, then you end up at range 3, which is interesting because now you can dodge focuses with it.
Okay.
And if you're like over here and someone's like low tiger shotting you, then you can at least get a bit closer than you would with an assault.
It's basically dive with assault speed at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So offensively, it's like the same things, but like the way it sets you up for other things is a bit more interesting. I know I mentioned that like a lot of this is range 3 mix-up tools. So if you do pull this out at range 1, if it's 6 speed, it's hard to react to unless they have grasp, and it sets you up for another range 3 mix-up on your next turn.
Right. Yeah. The number of times we've said range 3, even so far in this lesson, makes me think that it's a range that I'm going to want to be hanging out at anyway. Any way that I can find to get to range 3 is going to be useful to me.
Yeah.
Okay,
You have ways to like do stuff at like this isn't the bad range one tool. It's on curve at range two if you use one of your speed bonuses, but range three is like where you have like most of your options available, I think. So
sure, makes sense. Okay, and
it,
then assault is assault that everybody has. It will probably set range one if it goes off at all. Um, the the comparison between the two, it sounds like the real answer to this question is you use whichever one you have.
basically,
Um, but
uh,
if you do have a handful of both of them, there are situations where you might prefer one or the other, and often the one you would prefer, unless you're going to corner yourself with it, is Yaichirin. Is that correct?
yeah, I think that is pretty accurate. It also depends on like what's the rest of your hand looks like because you'll gain advantage. You get to strike on your next turn. Where do you want to end up, like range one or not range one?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If
Um,
you've got a handful of sweeps and focuses, maybe you would prefer the assault.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, at a bit of a higher level, the other nice thing about having redundancies in your normals is that you don't have to worry as much about giving one up for its boost or an EX.
Sure.
So if you say like I this is a really strong boost, I'll talk about it later, but if I prefer this boost in this matchup, the movement, then maybe I want to use my assault to strike and this to boost. If I already have an assault down, then maybe I want to like try to use the other one so I can preserve the EX for later in the match.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
So
pretty
yeah, I
sensitive.
that
Uh,
that redundancy and that's something we can basically like copy and paste, and when we apply that same idea to Yuzu Spike and Yuzu Focus or Sweep, same idea,
exactly.
right? Like if I have uh focus and need it for veil off, well, I don't need whatever this boost is. I
Yeah.
don't need to preserve whatever this boost is quite as hard. Um, or I can work for the EX if I need the EX.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that EX Assault in particular is like a famously strong card means
Mhm.
that consideration might be especially important for this.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
sounds
yeah,
good. So we
that's
do we want to talk all the attacks and then all the boosts, or shall we go card by card?
I think probably going through the attacks makes sense first,
Sure.
since the boosts are weird, and
Yep.
I want to
All
group them
good.
slightly differently. So next we have let's do these two first because this is like some weird fusion between sweep and focus. It's closer to focus's style, or it has weird text on it. It says you can't be pushed or pulled, so that's why it looks like focus.
That's very focused, right?
Uh, it has 7 power, but for each point of damage you took during the strike, -1 power. So this will actually usually end up making it trade worse than focus with things. Like you get hit by grasp, you're hitting them for 4, but you took like 2 instead of 1.
Right.
You get hit by sweep, you're very sad because you're hitting them for like 2
Like
or
like
something.
like yeah, 2 damage. You draw a card. Yeah, it's just worse numbers than focus. It also only has 6 effective guard instead of 7.
Yeah, so EX sweep just kills you outright.
Sure.
Um, it does hit at range 3, so it complements your mix up. And where it really shines is when it's able to hit cleanly. Like if they predicted that you're going to insult it to them, they played focus. You're just hitting them for 5 unanswered.
Right.
If this has stat bonuses, it gets very dumb because it just kills every slow.
Okay.
Like if
So
even if it's just EX, then that's like 8 power, 2 speeds, kills both of these.
and 2 speed on initiation is good enough, right? We kind of think of two
Yeah,
speed as a slow card, but if what you're trying to beat is winning the speed tie against sweep, that is enough to do that.
yeah.
Okay.
So this card definitely kind of incentivizes you to initiate with because it's not going to trade well, but sometimes if you just need to like protect against a fast option, it's good enough. It's a slow.
Sure. And if we do need a really 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 stable defensive card, conveniently we have focus like everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of important because like a lot of uses options again, like they're either mix-ups or just like they're like this unreliable slow. So using your normals to kind of fill out your defensive suite is relatively important in a sense. So in terms
Okay.
of the trade-off between here, maybe you want to use this on defense, this on offense, but that's
Makes
a simple way
sense.
of looking at it.
Okay. Cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, we can put maybe these ones aside over here as well.
Yeah. So last we have these, and as I mentioned, there are kind of nuances. So when you want to use one of these over the other, you might notice this is just an objective upgrade over Spike in
This is
every way.
literally just better.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a good attack. It's Spike, except it's harder for people to cross out of it.
Yeah, like okay, so again, I've done like 95 of these guys at this point. Often somebody we'll be talking about Soul Bad Guy, he's got gun flame, and people are like, yeah, it's assault, right? It's assault with some differences.
Yeah.
It's really, really rare for a character to have like literally a normal but better. I can't actually think of any other examples where it's like this is exactly the same as a normal, but it just has slightly higher numbers. That's extremely rare and kind of cool. It's
Yeah, like
a unique bit of redundancy.
uh, common knowledge in the custom scene, which I'm a bit familiar with, is that like normals are typically considered the strongest parts of like their function. So you shouldn't like design a special to be just a better normal because then they're kind of like breaking the balance of the tools everyone has.
Sure.
Uh, Yuzuriha.
Yuzuriha, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like if you're going to do it, like making an amped sweep is probably more harmful to the game than making an amped
Yeah,
spike, but it's still like that's very scary.
yeah.
Um,
You still do beat this in similar ways. Like you assault into its blind spot, you dive over it. You can spike it on offense.
sure. And so in terms of what this does to our redundancy, we already had this conversation before with these cards where like, yeah, all right, if you need the boost, um you you use it and then you still have the EX later on or something. But with those, there was some consideration about uh well, do I want to advance out of the corner and range 3? Do I want to get to range 1? With these two, it's like it's whichever one you have. And
Yeah,
whichever boost you need more, they're the same card, except this one's just better.
yeah. You do typically, I think, prefer to boost mix up. It's movements. Usually, season 6 characters ironically give up their mid speeds in order to use this, but you'll still have no option available.
Right.
So I think you will be striking with this card pretty consistently over spike. But like, if you need a spike and you have a spike, then you can use spike.
Sure, yeah, just because this is just better spike. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. So those are our Yuzu normal specials, whatever you want to call them. And these are going to be part of our big uh like all of these are relevant as gauge payouts as we discussed earlier. Getting them in our gauge to uh throw at random any of these cards in combination is going to be pretty strong.
yeah. I think the stat bonuses you get from your Exceed UA and Unsheath don't matter quite as much on the spike likes as the other two, but they are still spike. They cover like something that's assault especially is weak to, so
Okay.
just
And
getting like
and
some combination to cover each other.
and having them in my gauge as a way to cover the mix up in the first place or cover the defensive option in the first place will help these cards as well.
Exactly.
Okay, sure. And actually, I guess we could probably say like because there's a little bit of spike in here, it seems like sweep is more relevant to have engage than focus is.
Yeah, especially if you want to hit
Um,
at range 3, and this being
and
speed 3 means it can be
yeah,
spiked. Always cool.
so these cards are all relevant to have engage as threats for my various payouts.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess like nobly in terms of the opponent trying to like move around to defuse it. These will always hit like 1 to 3. These are a bit more range sensitive. That
right.
is also pretty good, I think. Sometimes you want cross or grasp if they're like staying too close to you, but I think like some combination of maybe these cards are what you're looking for in Gauge. Uh, Assuming
Makes
you want to
sense.
like use your unsheathed side of the payouts.
Right. Right. Okay. So any of these, and like to the point that you were making earlier, like this is a lot of cards.
Yeah, you
That
have a
this
lot of
is
options.
more than half of the things that you can do. All told, are good things to have in your gauge, and conveniently, often these are things that you are going to want to do anyway because they're good the first time too.
Yeah.
Like, never have I been in a game where it's like, oh man, in order to enable my big payout later on, I'm going to have to hit with sweep. What a tragedy. Like, sweep is good, hit with sweep, and then do
Yeah.
the scary thing later. Assault is good, hit with assault, do the scary thing later.
There's even a beautiful thing that happens sometimes where you'll hit with sweep, you beat whatever option they played, and then you'll sweep their answer to sweep after hand, like dive or something. So now you
Sure.
know it's safe to just like throw out another sweep right away.
Just
So
just do it again right away. Absolutely.
yeah. Or if they're
Okay.
low on hand size, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
force them to yeah, again from the Hyde lesson that I just had with Avasonian, make them have it can mean, well, have you used it up over the course of the entire game? No, you have no assault, no focuses left. Or it can mean you have a hand size of 2, you probably don't have it right now.
Yeah.
So you can either kind of play this grindy longer game and force your opponent to run out of options and use the fact that you have a lot of redundancies that way, or you can just say you probably don't have it right now and gamble a little bit, right?
Yeah. Gambling's
Okay.
always fun.
Do you have a preference on how you think Yuzu should be played between those two ideas?
I do think it's a nice idea to just like if you have something that hits at the range, you're fine with taking the trade in worst case. Like, I think it's almost always a good idea to just like throw out assault at range 3 because there's not a substantial loss case you have against most characters. Like, you trade even, but you gain advantage. You're at a position to like do other stuff with your like high power moves, sweep, Kiri. So
Right.
just like, especially if you're low on options, just throw something out, whatever you have
Right.
on hand, like whether that's unsheath or one of your other payouts options. It's
You don't need to wait for the perfect situation where they're completely drained of responses. You can probably just outvalue them over the course of the game.
yeah, and that's a
Okay.
bit more of a high risk play style. If you're playing to win, maybe you probably just want like use readings and stuff to be a bit safer. But I think the expected value of the payouts kind of outweighs what you're
Sure.
usually like trading down against.
Sure, yeah, and there's definitely like a tempo advantage if you are playing so passively that you are waiting for all of your opponent's options to drop. That might be very safe for the payout, but you're also giving them more time to do scary things to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And as kind of mentioned, uses defense isn't the best, so just kill them
Sure,
before
yeah,
they kill
and
you.
so she might actually fold before she can make the game back up with all of these crazy damage numbers she has.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so what other cards do we have? We've talked
Okay.
through honestly like half of her kit all at once at this point because they just look like normals.
Yeah. There is exactly one special I think I haven't talked about. So we looked at over here. It's a
Yep,
mid speed. It's a very strong when it's EX'd.
yep.
Uh, so that leaves us with Saki. You might have heard the name Saki whispered in the darkest corners of the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I am familiar with Saki.
Uh, 3 to 5 7 1. It both has a narrow range band, so like even if the opponent can't hit you back, they can pretty easily assault or cross or dive out of its range.
Yeah,
And one speed means that anything that hits it will cause it to like be stunned and not do anything. So you can't really like use it to call out sweep or anything. Uh, if it's set from your gauge, it's stun immune, but it still has that range band issue. So it's not very reliable, but it is a 7 power attack. So usually I think the common knowledge is just uses as force whenever you need to. If you get swept out of your hand, you're like happy because it's just like this buffer for the stuff you actually care about.
it's like as close to a dead card as you're going to get in your specials.
Yeah, but it is a relevant part of your range 3 mix up, I think. Because if you're standing here, the opponent has a focus, and like this is something that hits them for 5 without them being able to respond. If it's EX or if it's coming from gauge, it's like 9 power 2 speed. It has the same properties as crushing sweep. It's like it does present a move don't move mix up if you're very very sure you're happy with just like eating the salt or something.
Right.
Um, you shouldn't use it too often. It's something that's funny to keep in your opponent's mind, I think, but don't expect it to work that often. I think. Um,
So so when you're how do I put this? You don't have the ability to actually choose what payout if you're exceeding or if you're using unsheath. It's a random card, right?
yeah,
So when you say don't use it too often in that context, what you mean is don't unsheath with Saki in your gauge at all very often, correct? Because
it's
you can't choose whether to use it or not if it is in your gauge. You're taking the risk of using it if it's in your
yeah.
gauge at all if you unsheath.
I think for the most part, it is a liability to have it engage. Again, if you're range 3 and like your other options are things that lose to slows, then Saki is relevant. I'm hesitating very hard to say that like you should never use it because like there are cases where it's like it does something.
Right,
But
sure.
yeah, I think they're usually better
I guess
options.
my question is my question is what is our definition of use it, right?
Yeah,
Because of this random card thing, if it's in your gauge at all, that's you using it because you don't
yeah,
have a
yeah,
choice sometimes. Okay, so be careful if it's in your gauge, and I guess
yeah.
it would also mean that over here as a payout option is a little bit more attractive if Saki is in your gauge.
Exactly, yeah. So
Okay,
this being in your gauge probably telegraphs that you're caring more about the power numbers in your gauge than the actual attacks.
right.
Uh, which again might be a part of the mix-up in itself if you just like throw an over here suddenly or an unsheath suddenly.
Yeah, and you're
But
like, okay, yeah, hold this.
yeah,
This is just as much of a mix up as sweep is. It's just a one with it's a little bit dicier on your end than it would be otherwise.
yeah. But the opponent still has like a lot of movement options up. This is the only thing here, then it's
Yeah,
probably something that's just going to be
it
like
is
used as
not.
force.
That's not
Yeah,
real, right?
yeah.
Okay,
Um, one of my favorites kind of setups is at the beginning of the game. Say you're here, Ryu's here. You mix up forward. You're threatening range 3 disc boost.
yep, makes sense.
Uh, you're probably going to like use assault or dive or like you're probably not using over here. It doesn't do anything yet. But you're doing like conventional options, but they don't have any stat boosts yet. So like the opponent can just cross out of all of them, right?
Right.
Yeah,
You use it as the world's most scuffed, empty cross catcher.
yeah.
Not
That's
e-
probably one of the situations where it works the most often.
and
But
it's like not even like a real cross catcher where it's like, all right, you're at range 2 where you would use cross, I eat it with my guard and then I follow up on it. It's literally like only if they wouldn't have hit with the cross anyway.
yeah,
Is that relevant? That's very funny.
I think you do need to have a bit of a read on your opponent that they would be the type to just like try to avoid interacting with this mix up entirely. But
Sure.
if it works, then you have like 7 pound your gauge for something else you want to do later.
Right.
Uh,
And
it's
I
not
mean,
bad after.
you're scary enough at range 3 that there's a decent chance that your opponent does just not want to play with that mix up. Like range 3 is a volatile range and exceed anyway, and you have double the scary options and they just might not have good answers to it. This is a potentially real thing you could do.
Yeah.
It's
And if
just
you're fighting a
cheeky.
character that doesn't happen to have this is your only thing that hits at range 5, so it's like extremely telegraphed this way, but like if they don't have a projectile, then like worst case scenario they block it, so you have to spend like 3 cards. That's not
Right.
bad.
Yeah, and it's still you definitely won that interaction even if you didn't do the damage. And if they somehow are completely out of movement options, this is totally free. But like you're never going to move to range 5 with the intent of hitting this, it doesn't seem
Yeah,
like.
probably not.
Okay. Yeah,
And then
you're
after
not
you
a
hit it,
zone.
you probably will need to like walk forward at least one space to do anything. But
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
yeah.
Um how about ultras? Shall we go there next?
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. So we
So
kind
we
of
can talk
already
a bit more.
we touched a little bit on Kashu.
Yeah. People like to say it's like your cash out option, cash out.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That
good.
might be part of the pun they were going for, but
So
uh
this we talked a little bit about this as being like this is a really scary button that you can use because it lets you control exactly what card's coming out of your gauge.
yeah,
Um the fact that it doesn't stun, I guess it doesn't matter if the opponent's dead.
exactly. So this, despite being 6 speed, is kind of a mid speed. It's is 6 speed. It's range 4, way above curve. It's probably going to hit the opponent if you use it,
Right.
and it's probably going to do like 6 or 7 damage
Right.
if you use it at the right time. However, like any slow will trade with it. Even if you use that range 1, where it can kind of dodge sweep, they can just like dive back into you because they're not stunned. Anywhere between 1 and 4, they can assault you. So it's like very easy to trade with. It's probably gonna be like 4 or 5 for 7, which is like okay for 2 gauge.
Right.
Yeah, the easiest way to avoid that is just to kill them with this.
Okay.
It's going to hit them. It's going to do like 7 plus damage. So like if they're at that threshold, then you just like hold this above them. Uh,
And just when they run out of blocks, you have won the game.
yeah,
Okay.
essentially. Uh,
And you mentioned it being a mid speed. At range 1, it does get far enough out to dodge a slow in some board states, but that is kind of, you know, uh, you're dependent on not being near the corner when you do it.
yeah, it's in the bizarre situation of losing to both grasp and dive.
Yeah, that is weird. Huh.
Yeah, it is more reliable when EX, but again, like you still have to be aware of the possibility of trading if they call it out.
Sure. That actually we've talked about EXs as being like viable options a couple of times here, and obviously EXs are very strong. Uh
Mm,
there's a lot of um you know, X's in Yuzu's kit between this one and over here.
yeah,
All of them are they're plus X, so it's not like a replacement effect where
yeah,
adding bonus power doesn't it would still be relevant to EX something and have it be even stronger. It wouldn't. There's no anti synergy there. I guess I
yeah.
should say. Okay.
I don't know if you've done your Aurier lesson yet, but it's a lot more straightforward than that.
Okay. Cool. I have not done the Aurier lesson yet. That's
Look
coming
forward
up
to
hopefully
it.
pretty soon. All right.
Yeah,
So we don't have to
yeah.
care
This
about
works
that.
well.
EX decks just make it stronger.
Yeah, works well with EXs. Works well with Unsheath bonus, UA bonus, and this thing I'll talk about in a second. Uh, yeah. So you can just like stack on as much power as you want. As I mentioned, like you can use your ultras With your UA, it costs a bit more than usual because you're also like discarding the ultra from your gauge.
Sure.
But if you can set it up, it's like again 9 power. That's very hard to avoid entirely.
Right. And again,
It
if it's killing the opponent, then you don't care.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so something you probably want to use to close out the game. It is like people tend to be scared of this, so you don't always want to like give it up entirely. But if it ends up in your
Right.
gauge, it has weird interactions with like your other payout options. So sometimes it's nice just like spend its force for change cards.
Sure. It
The
also
season
seems
six
like
classic.
it'd be a fun mix up with anything with ignore armor on it. So any of
Yeah, that's true.
your spike or your spike like is uh going to be able to call out that block if you're not setting it from gauge or if you're setting it from gauge.
Yeah, puts a lot of pressure on it.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what about the one with the really long name?
This is something that I don't know has a established nickname because it doesn't actually get used often. I guess it's Kurenai.
That's really convenient that we don't have to have a good name for this card.
Yeah. So 1 to 2 6 3 is a weird sideline because like even if it hits something, it's probably hitting like a sweep or a focus, so it's not even really trading that well.
Yeah, it's a mid speed that
Uh,
doesn't beat anything.
yeah, and it's also 1 to 2, so it's not even really contributing to like your range 3 mix up. Sometimes you
Right.
want to be at range 2, but like it, a lot of your stuff tends to be a bit more avoidable or cross vulnerable from there. Um, but the relevant part is that if you were stunned, if you lost the strike, so to speak, then you get to install the boost. So this is a card that's saying that it probably wants to be a boost.
Okay.
It does have 6 power print on it, so it's like nice having your gauge, but um yeah, the boost is swift and it adds itself to a gauge. So like you get the 6 power in your gauge, like no matter whether or not you actually hit the opponent. And it gives you like stats that are like the important parts of this and an EX. So like this is a lot of your set play, so to speak of.
Okay. So situations so the way that this would work then is I've got a gauge handy. I throw it at range 1 or range 2. Maybe I hit for 6.
Yeah.
This is cleanup timing, so I could get both at once. I could get the damage and also I don't have to lose the strike. I could trade.
Yeah. I think
Um,
its best case scenario is actually hitting something like focus.
sure. Yeah, so you hit you deal some damage maybe. If you don't, you probably got stunned. This gets installed as a boost, which I guess all this means that you could conceivably use it on your opponent's turn.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I think the idea behind this attack is that you are essentially spending a gauge, say, I might lose a strike, but I have this going into my own turn and there's not much you can do about it.
Okay, so I'm gonna yeah, so that's the plan then, is I'm gonna use this to install Angel Lost uh on my opponent's turn when I really need sweep for some reason.
Yeah,
Swift for some reason.
Swift, yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Swift is actually, I think this is actually one of Use's strongest boosts because like everyone likes Swift. It's like a nice set of stats. But
Sure.
if you're already exceeded, you can combine this. If you have Unsheath in your gauge, you can combine it with this, and so you're just like +3, +2 now strike.
That's
Uh,
unreasonable.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. And if you did that on defense, right, it like effectively all of that is at now strike speed.
yes.
Okay,
So
that's really scary.
yeah, that's when it's at strongest. But even without that, it's like still augmenting your normals mix up in the same way this is, although like slightly less rewarding.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Would you play this boost in neutral, or are you mostly planning to install it through the ultra?
it is probably smarter to play it in neutral. It does give the opponent the chance to defuse it, but like you don't have to unless you have like a huge lead already. It's kind of weird to like spend gauge on like a gamble that don't even hit you at all to get the boost into play. It's kind of convoluted.
Right. Right.
Um,
Okay.
if you can't win the strike otherwise, it might be worth doing if you don't have any blocks left or something and you don't want to wild swing.
Right.
But
It or if you have a setup that the situation is not going to present itself again and it's your opponent's turn and they're punching you,
yeah,
just go get swift and you might be good to go.
it definitely has its
Um
moments, especially because again, this is your best boot, so opponents are probably going to want to tech it.
sure, sure, that makes sense. Um so are there situations I'm also seeing after add this to your gauge?
Yeah.
This is not one of the cards that we called out as being particularly useful in your gauge. Is that ever a problem that we're adding it to our gauge as an after?
Uh, so it's not too bad in gauge. It's like with your stats 1 to 2, 8, 4. That's like funny donkey kick, I guess, without any
Sure.
guards. Um, again, you usually want to be using your range 3 mix up, but if you end up here, it's like not bad. I guess it kills the things it needs to kill.
Right.
And it has the funny property of like if it doesn't work or if it gets reactively stunned and it goes back into play, you get to loop the boost. It goes back into your gauge eventually.
Right.
It
Right.
is one of your few ways to like get gauge back on your Exceed side. But in the case where you don't want to really rely on that's happening, then it is an ultra in your gauge. It's force.
Okay. So the exact same interactions that we were talking about when we have a block in our gauge, we have a grasp in our gauge. That's not a bad thing. It just means that we might not be able to do our payout mix up quite as safely as we otherwise would. That's
Yeah,
fine. We'll use it as force for something else.
yeah. It's an ultra, so it's 2 force even. So that's
True,
always
yeah.
nice.
And also the timing at which it goes to gauge, it gets installed as a boost. Ideally, I'm using it as part of my big payout right now with Unsheath or with my Exceed character ability or something, and
Yeah,
then it goes to gauge. So
yeah,
it's not going to be conflicting with the payout that I'm trying to angle towards. It's something that I'll be able to use to like rebuild afterward.
exactly.
Got it.
And again, it is after timing, so you don't even necessarily need to hit with that. You just
Yeah,
have
sure.
to.
Even if you whiff on the
Yeah,
payout, you'll still have a little bit of gauge
yeah, probably.
to work with. Okay, I get you.
So like it's pretty free boost to play. If it's in your hand, you probably just put it down and hope the opponent doesn't have tech.
Okay. Makes sense. And yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, like with season 6, like there's not a lot of crazy set play. There's no Way of the Warrior, there's no Swift Destruction. So like
yeah,
it's often gonna be like this or maybe Superior is gonna
yeah,
be the tech bait anyway.
yeah. Superior again. Like the important parts of these are the power and speed that you can like stack with your UA. So
Right.
either of these, the opponent's probably not going to want to leave in play. So
Okay.
if they run out of techs dealing with one, then you get the other to play with.
Okay. That makes sense.
Um, Also notably, I've been mentioning that uses wild swings are kind of weird. There is Saki like clogging up your chances of doing anything at all.
Right.
But if you wild swing this, then you have like you get to actually see whether or not taking the trade is worth it, installing it on the opponent's turn. So
Oh, sure.
that is
It's like
something really
it's
great.
like a little not a super impactful option select unless you really do need this boost right now, but like validating and getting stunned is
Yeah,
a real thing you could do if you don't like your odds. Okay.
yeah. Like if you're just getting grasp or something, and like the punish you have makes up for the 3 damage you're about to take, then like it's a pretty good deal.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are all of the other I mean, we'll talk about the normals in a second. We've talked about most of them already.
Mhm.
Um that's all of our attacks, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are going to be useful in our gauge. The ones that aren't, we kind of know they aren't. It's
Yeah.
these two. Um, that's kind of mostly it, right? It's the almost anything else at least has a place in our payout suite somewhere, and even this
Yeah.
one kind of does.
Yeah. And this attack
Okay,
also has like 6 power printed on it, so it's like not bad with
sure, yeah,
this.
you'll take it with over here. You'll take it with unsheath maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
mostly Kasho, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, okay. Oh right.
Yeah.
Um, so from here, you want to talk boosts?
Yep, sounds good. So
Yeah,
we talked about this.
we
It's
talked
good
about this. We talked
stats.
about unsheath.
Yeah. Uh Probably your other relevant stat boost is this one, which is like something you probably this is a good attack to have in your gauge. So it's mostly just like as a countermeasure for them always teching this. Fierce is something that season 6 characters don't always have the luxury of, and this has the funny clause of staying around if you get stunned. So similar to this attack, it's kind of relevant, most relevant if you get reactively stunned. So if you
Sure.
salt into them, you do 6. They sweep you, you trade even, but you get your piece for your next turn. That's when you're happiest, I think.
Right. And if you strike into them and you stun to slow, you're not like, oh man, now I don't
Yeah,
get this next turn. Like it did its job. You're not sad about that. But you would prefer to do a bunch of damage and then have it later on as well.
yeah.
Okay.
So like you just do your fast attacks, you hit them with the sweep for 8 power, and then it goes away. And that's stats. That's value.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And in terms of our like as we're talking about these, we can kind of play the attack versus boost game. It sounds like this one, it's both. They're both awesome.
yeah,
It sounds like this one is mostly the boost.
yeah.
Um,
Usually,
but also the attack is the boost, so it's sort of kind of
it's the
both a
boost one
little
way or
bit.
another. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. For this one, what's the evaluation here?
Um, +2 power, I think, is a breakpoint that Yuzu doesn't always care about hitting. Like something you can just like EX and kill a slow if you need to. You have like these that give you that extra point of power. Uh, this is different from these two because it's just like your reward is going up, but it's not necessarily your reliability. You're not any more likely to hit the opponent.
Right.
So you already have to have like confidence that you have something else in hand that will give this value.
Right.
So this being like your one slow-ish shape and you having like better boosts to help like confirm it's make this stronger even means I think you'd usually be happy playing this boost or playing this attack, sorry. But like it's not a bad boost. It
Okay.
complements the rest of your kits pretty well.
And obviously, if like we're assuming that our opponent is going to strike into us when we play this, because if they don't, we can make their
Yeah.
life pretty miserable.
Yeah. It is still a relevant threat, something they might want to consider attacking, and then you have again free reign to play these more often.
Sure,
Or
yeah.
just
Yeah, you get your really honestly probably scarier boosts online at that point. The other consideration, I guess, as we're talking about this card and its boost, is we were talking redundancy before, so it might also make sense
yeah.
to evaluate these boosts at the same time,
Yeah.
and maybe talk about them that way. So like sweep is obviously awesome, focus is obviously awesome. Um,
Um
I've never seen a character who really loves just defense over sweep.
yeah.
Um,
Ironically,
that
on Yuzu, there is a very funny interaction between these two where, like, you have +3 armor, so that means you're taking 3 less damage. So this
oh,
might do more power.
sure, yeah, that's fair.
But again, Sweep is probably Yuzu's most reliable defensive option.
It's
So,
just probably better anyway. So and Veloff is awesome. We got some gauge, but this focus is another card that we aren't actually super excited about to have in our gauge.
yeah, it's only 4 power, it hits at range 2, and again, you have as many copies of Bailoff as you want, as long
Right.
as you have to engage already.
And we would really prefer to use focus.
Yeah.
So both of these cards are things that we would rather use as attacks. We probably will use them as attacks. Does that mean that there's less pressure on Kiri as an attack and we could use the boost more freely? Or these are all slows and we don't have any other slows? Do we need every slow we can get?
I think that's matchup dependent. Again, like, you're very happy if you can get Kira in your gauge. It has 7 on it. But if you need to, like, if this is more important to threaten for some reason, you can usually get by just using your normal slows.
Okay,
You
because you're probably not going to use your normal slows for anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a matchup because, like, I guess you do have this as another guarded card, which is like very good. But if it's an opponent that's like just fast flying all over the place, expecting you not to trade with them, then like having more of these available is pretty nice.
I got you. Okay. So in our boost versus attack game, this is like leaning towards attack, but it's still fairly close.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. You're probably not boosting these normal, so like this can
Definitely.
afford to take up the slack.
Definitely. Okay. Where to next?
Uh Stat boost. Oh yeah. There's a complement to this power boost, which is on here. It's a range boost that works the same way. So the counterplay to this is probably them just like walking up to you, and then the only thing that gets benefit from having range at range 1 is like a sweep like, which isn't getting stunned. So it's pretty awkward compared to the power bonus. Uh, in some cases they'll like stand at range 5, and then like again, your only range 5 attack is Saki, wherever that is right now.
Saki
But
it's gone forever, I think.
oh, here it
Feather
is. Yeah.
Saki.
If you're at range 5, this extends your threats to include Tachi itself, which it boosts on, sadly, and then
Right.
like your Ultra. So like
Right.
it does expand your mix up, but like not that substantially.
Right.
And again, these are options that like this one might be stunned, but like then you're at range 1 and the range isn't doing anything for you anymore.
Right.
It lets you threaten more things at range 4, but
Yeah,
again, like
playing your really good range 3 mix up at range 4 sounds pretty relevant. Unfortunately, adding your range 2 cards to your range 3 mix up seems less relevant because there's actually
yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's that much that you would prefer doing at range 2 anyway.
yeah, mostly just
Okay.
like I guess these 3 cards.
So this is really for if you're at range 4 or 5.
Yeah, and
Okay.
even then, like chances are this stun clause won't actually go off, and then you're in a situation where you still need like approach to continue playing.
Right. Sure. Okay. And same thing that we did with with sweep and focus, we already talked about. Like mix up is a pretty strong boost.
Yeah,
Um, and spike, this is literally just better spike. So for this evaluation, it's probably more like this. It seems
yeah.
like.
And
Okay.
like mix up is also a boost that lets if you're at range 4, you can go to range 3 and threaten your stuff. So it's like a similar function, but this is probably like a bit more impactful.
And on a slightly lower value card because it's just worse.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
On the note of mix up, we also have a slightly stronger version of mix up, maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean
Uh,
this is lightning reflexes. Speaking of Ryu over here.
yeah, it's an ultra boost.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a it's a 1 force ultra boost actually.
yeah,
That's
but
crazy.
yeah, you get to do it for free. You probably use this to get to like range 2 or 3 and then throw your standard mix up. It
Right.
doesn't draw a card like this one, but and again, like the funniest user lines involve using assault like 4 times. But
Right.
if you need to reposition and strike, which is like a lot of non-season 6 characters have stronger set play than you, so this is kind of your way to break that up. So
Okay.
it's pretty relevant.
It's an end of boost war on your terms kind of boost.
Yeah,
Also,
and
probably worth mentioning, and please confirm if I'm wrong. This boost would contradict or would have anti synergy with most of your big payouts because this one requires an action. Wherever Unsheath is requires a boost. Um, you can't the and strike the then strike part means that I
yeah,
can't use this action. I can't use this boost.
you can combine it with your like +2 power +1 speeds sides of the payouts, but you can always just like use over here or cash if you need to and have it be like less punishable because you're not range 1 anymore. So
Okay.
you do have like kind of options, but your UA itself, yeah, you can't combo into this.
Okay. So I'm using this for those specific sides of my payouts or just kind of general range 3 offense, and it turns out I have a lot of things I'd like to do at range 3 anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has interesting interactions with your exceed side because like again, you won't be generating engage, but maybe you can like improve your positioning throughout like an option to diffuse whatever the opponent's trying to like use to avoid getting hit by this.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
very strong boost.
Makes sense. This is also a very strong attack on the
Yeah.
attack versus boost game. Where are we at on this one?
So I am a personal enjoyer of using 4 assaults in a row. I want to use this whenever possible. Like again, it's a really good boost. If I need to use it, you need to use it.
Right.
Uh and assault's boost is like you get more movement, but you don't get the ad strike, which is so important to like why this is strong. So you can always, I think, prefer assault as an attack in this
Okay.
case.
Okay. So we'll mix and match these. More often we'll use this. Sometimes we'll use this, but we would prefer all of these being attacks because Assault is just a really strong boost, a really strong attack.
Yeah, especially with
Okay.
+2, +1.
That all makes sense to me. Let's see. So I think we've covered the ones that we have not covered yet are
Yeah.
these boosts.
Uh, these are probably the least useful parts of user skits.
How convenient.
So you'll notice these most involve adding things to gauge.
Yeah.
First note is that users pretty sensitive to her gauge compositions. Usually wants like have control over what's going in there. And as mentioned, Saki is like questionably useful. You can like do things with 7 power card in your gauge. Sometimes it's a mix up at range 3. But more importantly to the boost, this is a 1 force boost that says +3 power at the start of your turn, add this to gauge. So either the opponents will see this, look at the board state, and say, I can beat you anyway and strike into you, and
Right.
the +3 power won't do anything. Or they'll say, I can't beat this, so I'll just like play boost or prepare. I'm in a better state, and this is in your gauge now.
And that's of
And
questionable value.
not only is it of questionable value, but at that point you've paid 1 force to use your front side UA.
That's very true. Yeah. And I guess you also didn't have your opponent strike into you, but
Yeah,
presumably they spent that turn doing something that was useful to them anyway.
yeah.
Okay.
So like the best justification I could give this is that a boost that costs 1 force, so you can use it to like get something out of your gauge
Right.
that you don't
And
want
then
like a block.
replace it with Saki, a thing you might want to be getting out of your gauge anyway.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
not great. It
And
exists.
and Saki itself is not always great. Is this kind of one of our dedicated force cards?
I think so, yeah. Like I said,
Okay.
you're not unhappy if this gets swept out of your hands. Just kind of
Right.
like taking a space.
Right. That makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah. So then Iris Blades, mm, admittedly something not, or admittedly not something I've experimented with too much. Add up to 2 cards on top of your deck to gauge, and then so it's like basically using your frontside UA twice,
Right.
except it's random from the top of your
It,
deck.
yeah,
Deck.
that is given how sensitive the gauge composition needs seems to be. That seems questionable.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to use it to exceed, then you have like you're in exceed mode. You have your cleanup back drawback, and you
Right.
might not have things to actually threaten unless like you're low on deck size and you know that's like you have assault and sweep in your deck.
Yeah, you have like
Maybe
solid wild swings left.
I guess that's a use case. Like you have normals in your deck and you don't want to get reds. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess. Like
I guess.
I guess the obviously like labbing stuff is important and figuring out like new ways to use strange tools is important. But the fact that we are needing to think this hard about coming up with use cases for this
Yeah,
means that it like comparatively like I didn't need to be like, is this good or not when we were talking about unsheath.
exactly.
Okay. So
And potentially more relevantly, this is on one of the cards you'd use to pay out on what you're putting in your gauge. So
right. So yeah, why are you stacking with questionable options when you could just be hitting with this?
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
So this card might exist. This is a good attack at least.
Sure. And honestly, a very good attack. It's a good way to close a game. Okay, cool.
Yep. And if
So
you don't want to use it at that moment, you can always just like CC.
right. Right. Okay. So at this point we've talked about sweep sweep, just defense, focus, veil off, spike mix up, assault, air dash. I think the only cards we haven't talked about in some way are, and we talked a little bit about superior, but not very much. I
Yeah.
think this is all we got left. Um, Tell me a little bit about our remaining normals here. I assume the fact that they haven't come up yet means that they're actually not that important.
They're like again, they're part of Exceed. They're relevant.
Right.
Cross, as you know, basically always wins quote unquote at range 2, but like Yuzu doesn't have much she's doing at 4 or 5 in general. So
Right. Unless you're
if
setting up that unreactable Tachi. Or
true
Saki,
or
rather.
Saki, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like she does have ways to get back in after using a cross. Like she has her repositioning boosts. So like if you have if you need to use cross, you need to use cross. You don't want to get hit by a
Right.
lot of things.
And
Um,
you could get to range 4 and play Kashuo. You could get to range 4 and play um Tachi. Like
Gotcha.
there's things
Yeah,
that you could do at 4 specifically.
yeah, you do have a mix up.
Yeah.
But you should make sure you have like a plan of what you do after you play cross
Sure,
because
sure.
not only are you like putting yourself at a you're putting yourself immediately at an awkward spot, but also it's going to your gauge, so you'll have to like contend with having a 3 power attack that
Right.
messes with your positioning.
You
You'll probably
don't
want to do that
particularly
eventually.
want crossing your gauge. You need to do something about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's like a boost that's kind of enhances. You can play a lot of EXs naturally because of your redundancies, but if you only have one copy in hand, this is like a boost that makes your stuff scarier in the same way as Einzellost.
Right. Okay. And Einzellost is already very strong, so and we already talked about that. So that's hopefully this is mostly superior unless we really need cross.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grasp, best option. It's Grasp. Awkward in your gauge because it only hits at range 1, like a lot of other things which have at least like multiple ranges they work at, so it's very easy to diffuse. But if they do stay at range 1, become speed 8, power 5, that's pretty good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean that's acceptable. We're not hitting those crazy damage numbers that we're clearly playing Yuzuriha for, but
Yeah.
that's not nothing.
It's definitely like relevant as a checkmate option if like your gauge is completely empty, you can just like grasp them twice for like 8 damage.
Sure.
That's nice.
Honestly, kind of similar. You're taking counterattacks, but kind of similar to Kashuo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the boost is like good as always. If you're pressuring the opponent to strike into you, which I think they want to do a lot of the time against Yuzu anyway, but she does. You might notice. I know you want to talk about Econ a bit later, but you
Yeah.
might notice the only other place in your kit that says draw are like these 2 cards and focus, I guess. So she does enjoy having the money if the opponent allows her to.
Right. Okay. And obviously, getting out of the corner, getting to range 3. These are all relevant things that Yuzu wants anyway.
Yeah,
But we're not incredibly enamored with either side of this card. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's fine.
sure, it's
When you need to
grasp.
grasp, you need to grasp. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'd be a
Similarly,
strange character whose best. Well, I mean, it'd be a new 13 or a Ramlethal, who's one of their best attacks is grasp, but
true.
that ain't Yuzu.
She wants to be a bit further out than that. Yeah.
Yep. How
So
about
speaking of
dive?
which, of these last cards, this is the one that hits at range 3 still, so it's always nice.
Right.
Very scary with her stat bonuses because then it's like dodging all the slows and doing like 7.
Sure. EX dive on its own is already just like
Yeah,
something that many characters can't really productively deal with. And then if you add extra power on top of that, that's just more value.
yeah. Dive is generally very receptive to any stat boost it can get, so
Yep, definitely.
only slightly below curve, so even just like throwing power on it is nice.
Sure.
Um, it again whiffs at range 1 and 2, so somewhat easy for the opponent to defuse by just like moving around. So if this is the only thing in your gauge, you probably want to be a bit wary of that, but it can form a mix up with like other stuff if you're able to hold range 3.
Yeah, and if you've got something that would be on curve at range 3 like assault or Yaichirin to say that they can't cross out for free, uh
Yeah.
dive in these two is just as good a mix up as spike in these two.
Yep.
Okay. So definitely relevant there. It just might not be as I guess the reason that it hasn't come up as much is that there isn't a Yuzu dive the way that there's a Yuzu
Yeah.
spike. But we can kind of use these cards in a similar way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Okay.
mid speeds that
Yeah.
deals with
Makes sense.
slows
It's
where they're
that
overused.
part of our mix up as a payout option. It's a good card to use just as a general turn to turn offense.
Yeah.
Does Yuzu get particular value out of reading, or is it just reading things?
It's relevant, especially if you're trying. Notably, this is something that's again hard to combo with your funny stat boost side of the
Yeah.
payouts. So, your strongest punishes are probably over here or Kasho. Hit them for 8s, probably close the game outs.
Okay.
It's normal. It's like probably best used for checkmating, or if you just need to like defuse a bunch of stat boost the opponent has.
Yep. So mostly general reading things, but on a character who can, with a couple of cards, hit for absurd power values.
Yeah, as
Okay.
mentioned, you're kind of mix up sensitive, so even if you whiff, having the hand knowledge is pretty relevant. But yeah,
Okay. Makes sense.
if you know they're out of options and you get to like abuse your assault chains or whatever.
And finally, we have block.
Eh, block doesn't have a printed power value, and it doesn't hit the opponent. So you're very sad to have disengage, but not dying is always pretty cool.
Yep.
Uh, and again, kind of weak to set play as a season 6 character, so tech it is pretty valuable.
Right. And I mean the big value to most characters who actually do like block. Like I remember on our Vega lesson, Blue was saying like block is one of Vega's best openers. That's because he needs gauge.
Yeah,
And Yuzu might need gauge, but she does not need block in gauge.
yeah.
It really is you're only playing it to not die.
Unless for some reason you want to use Kasho as soon as possible,
Right.
it's not doing much
Right.
there
You
yet.
need something to pay for that. Yeah. And then what about tech hit?
Yeah, yeah. Tech hits. Yuzu has trouble testing like opponents stacking a bunch of speed or whatever, a bunch of guard. So it's nice diffusal.
Okay.
You get to use some part of your mix-up right away to capitalize on it. It's probably something that gains advantage and like starts building your pressure again.
So
You can't see away with it, but yeah.
similar to grasp and respect, they're not these are role players. They're not all-star cards that we're super excited to use either as attacks or boost, but like we'll take them.
Yeah, they do what they
Okay.
need to do.
Makes sense. So that we've navigated our way through the labyrinthine exceed board that we've created for ourselves here. I think every one of these cards has been in every configuration across every pixel of this board at this point.
Ideal.
So that's everything that Yuzu can do. That's every attack, every boost, both special and normal and ultra. Any other kind of like random considerations about her any combos or cards that we haven't talked about yet?
Not too much. Something I forgot to mention is like I mentioned like my favorite opener, which is like you're here, you mix up forward, you throw Saki, and they cross out of it.
Right.
You do have like a slightly more reasonable cross catcher in the form of like using Swift and Deadly, and then throwing Tachi. Because then like the only thing they can do normals wise is like assault or dive, which like whatever. But again, they're pretty likely to either like throw a slow or a cross out, and this catches both of those.
Sure.
So just another reason, like it's only different from Spike by like 2 stat points, but those are like deceptively impactful, I think.
Right, definitely. Yeah, especially in
Yeah.
opening positions where and like there's a lot of situations where your opponent does not have quite enough to uh they have enough to dodge out of the way of a 3 range attack, but not a 4 range attack.
Yeah.
Um it could be here with sweep. We know how strong a range 1 to 4 sweep is. If there's no like this is a lot of real estate on the
Mhm.
exceed board. There's a lot of situations where they might not be able to cross all the way out of a Yuzu spike.
Yeah. It's like
Okay.
they're just like a lot of deceptively strong or yeah, deceptively strong cards of uses kits. Like using mid speeds, this boost. Again, like this is only +1/+1, but like it changes a lot, especially if you're able to go into your turn with it. So you have to be willing to use like some of the seemingly less reliable options, like really gets everything out of you. So I think.
Okay. That makes sense to me. All right. Um so then we've already talked about kind of like the general things we want in our gauge. It seems like for if we're looking for this or oh no.
Uh,
Oh no, where's
yeah,
unsheathing?
it's
Thank you.
going everywhere.
For these two, we would be happy with definitely assault, definitely Tachi, their equivalents, right? We'd be
Yeah,
okay with any of these. We would probably be okay with dive. We would be okay with sweep, wherever sweep went. The sweep, thank you. Um, any other cards I'm missing that
yeah,
are kind
this
of
would
oh yeah,
like
sure, and
yeah,
sweep like specifically for the range 3,
yeah. Keyword
yeah,
there's like the range three mix up.
right,
Maybe this. Um, the general rule of thumb is just you want to have things that hit at your current range or like whatever ranges you think the opponent won't be able to easily escape.
right, sure,
It's
okay,
like you want to have like threats that are relevant, and as soon as they stop being relevant, either like get them out of your gauge or just revert and then try to
right.
set up again.
And then
Or
if
like
we're angling more toward the over here or Kashu side of the payout, um, we would maybe slightly be disinclined to be looking at these lower power value cards, even though they're awesome and we would be happy to see them here.
yeah,
But any of these feel a little bit better. Um, Saki finally has a better use here.
it's a chance.
So we would kind of swap those ones out, and that would be kind of our new preferred gauge composition, and we'd be happy with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, is that pretty much correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
As mentioned, over here is like it's fine with just like having a 4 power and being able to dodge everything, but it would be cool if you did it for 8s.
right,
And Catro does let you like combine, like you can throw out a block burst and then you can do your actual power number afterwards. So
okay. And so
yeah,
the cards that we are always happy to have engage, and always not like happy, but like ecstatic to have engage, are like sweep, maybe any of these higher damage mid speeds, but only if we already have our fasts as coverage for our mix up.
yeah,
But really, it's kind of like the card that always is useful engage seems like it's mostly sweep.
yeah. These again are questionable because like you don't get moved to range one and defuse them. But, like
Right,
assault's always great, sweep like's always great.
right.
Uh, yeah,
Okay, that all makes
that's
sense.
best and so.
Um, some combination of these cards you will be able to find. You don't need the perfect payout setup. You'll be able to find through some combination of those 4 payouts the damage you need to kill your opponent. It seems like.
Yeah,
Okay, makes sense.
and you only really need to like gets the big bombs off like 3-4 times before they run out of health.
Yeah, sure. And realistically, over the course of a game, is that typically how many times you find yourself using those big hits, 3 or 4,
Probably not, like because again you are just like playing exceed to get to that point. So like
for the rest of the time? Okay, so if
yeah,
you if you if you're only throwing bombs, it would take 3 or 4 because that's how much
yeah,
health
yeah,
they have. Over the course of a game, maybe it's like 2.
yeah. Realistically,
Okay,
like hitting the opponent with over here once probably seals the fate of the game, and like you close out with a catch or something. But like you only need to hit them like for 10 damage 2 times before it's like unreasonable for them to come back.
right, sure. And if you are hitting 3 big Yuzu payouts, you've probably just won.
Yeah,
Okay, makes sense.
big
Um,
numbers.
Shall we talk econ really quick before we move to counterplay?
Yeah, I alluded to it a bit before, but like this is every source of draw in your kits. And I guess respect.
Right.
Um, it's not very much. You will probably have to take the prepare action at some points. Uh, you will have to like rely pretty heavily on the season 6 special of like I have 8 cards in my gauge, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to CC most of them.
Right.
Maybe
And
not all of them. Like yeah,
especially for Yuzu, she actually there's several cards that could be in her gauge that we would also be able to enhance our payouts by getting rid of.
yes.
Okay.
It's like you get to kind of like do a dual purpose of like I have cards in my hand so I can play on defense, but also my gauge is more valuable for whatever I want to like build towards on offense.
Right. So
So
if we have an Ainsel loss that got added to our gauge, if we have a block, we can just throw those out and refill our hand that way and not have to worry too much.
yeah. And again, like you're probably curing your hand mostly to help you on defense because that's like where Yuzu has a bit of issue functioning. So things like this that aren't really anything for you that can be thrown out easily. Like you're not too worried about getting rid of grasp or block unless like the opponent has a threat that's like only answered by that immediately.
Right.
So
Yeah, if you're up against Faust and he's threatening snip, 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 maybe don't get rid of the grasp.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you probably will want to filter a bit aggressively and be aware of like reshuffling when you're running out of some option.
Okay. And so our dedicated force cards are like these two, sort of kind of Ainsel loss, but really only after we've used the boost.
Yeah,
Um, anything we don't want in our gauge. And then
yeah.
like maybe spike, because we have a better spike.
Dependent. Like again, the boost is nice. Sometimes you want to like keep if the opponent's like out of slows, for example, then like yeah, you can just start throwing out all your spikes. If
Sure.
they're out of things that like lose to assault, and maybe just like start CCing those so you have like things that beat what they have left.
Right. Okay. And obviously like with the little amount of card draw that Yuzu has in her kit, these cards that we've identified as being like probably okay to spend with as force might not be enough. If we're trying
Yeah,
to keep the pace of the game up, we probably are going to need to spend something that we would rather hit with.
yeah.
Um, is that a huge problem for her? Is her damage value high enough that like I guess in Exceed in general, you don't need to hit with every card in your kit. You
Yeah.
can afford to spend things.
Unless you're just like losing every mix up, I think usually you won't run into too many issues like finding or like finding a card that you really need to win the game.
Right.
Uh, or like
It,
wishing you didn't spend S force earlier.
is there anything that you like absolutely won't ever spend or close to it?
Absolutely never is hard. Again, like I love assault. It's good.
You're right. Assault is, and
But
that's like a personal preference thing. You
yeah,
don't want to kill your darlings.
yeah. You probably don't want to like obviously give up all 4 copies of one of your normals,
Right.
but like that still gives you like 2 or 3 that you can spend if you don't need them right away.
If you really need to, sure.
Yeah. Costco again is mostly useful at the end of the game, so like early on, don't worry too much about like throwing it out if you need more force.
Okay.
Uh over here, sometimes you just don't have the setup right away. Like both sides of this kind of require your gauge to be in a certain state. So like at the beginning of the game, it's not doing much for you. You
Right.
might just need to get rid of
Right.
it.
If you're on the back foot at the very beginning, you might need to catch up.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, are there any uh other like heuristics for spending that you care about, or is it really just kind of like finding stuff in the moment?
I think like again, anytime your gauge is like you either want your gauge to, like all hit at certain range or like have a big power number to fuel over here Kasho. If you're ever like not immediately in the place, like convert that into value, then you might just need to like throw some stuff out. So I think like in terms of heuristics, just like look at your gauge. If you can't think of what you're doing with it, then it might just need to become force.
Okay. And if you need it, like, all right, so I've hit with a few assaults over the course of the game, and it's become apparent that like if I finally get to my payout, maybe I don't need all four of them to beat the opponent.
That's true.
I can chip away at the payout to fuel something if I need to. It doesn't have to be like all of the cards in my gauge are things I want to hit with. You probably don't have to hit with all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned sort of filtering aggressively as Yuzu and getting her best options, doing the season 6 thing. Do you find yourself reshuffling most games as Yuzu?
I would say most games, but maybe a bit more often than usual, because you're generally again trying to take advantage of what the opponent doesn't have answers to with what you're striking with from Gage. So it does take her like longer to completely run out of ways to like poke at a certain hole, but if you do like use all your mix-ups early on, you use EX Spike, then you might want to get your mid speeds back.
Right. Okay. Sure. That makes sense. Um, and otherwise, I mean, like if the game is going on long enough, if you're filtering aggressively, you're triggering the automatic reshuffle anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she usually does want to be reshuffling a bit before she hits stat points, but
Okay.
yeah.
So either the opponent's already dead, or you might be doing a manual reshuffle. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. And because of her crazy damage numbers, the opponent might already be dead.
That is always ideal.
Right. That makes sense to me. Any other economy notes you want to mention?
Um, Gauge econ is kind of weird for you because again, you care about what's in your gauge, so don't feel too pressured to like try to find a way to use an ultra if you have like 8 cards in your gauge. Just like it can be 4, so you can like use your exceed action to spend 1, and then like you can even just like change out a card by exceeding on 1 turn and then rebring on the next.
Right.
You don't have to care too much about having a lot of gauge as much as like what's in it.
Specific cards in your gauge, ideally enough to cover a mix up, and then ideally enough to fuel 1 or 2 payouts.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. Okay. Um, and I guess my final question, as always, is about counterplay. So these are the Yuzu things. These are the things that
Mm.
Yuzu is going to be doing to kill her opponent. What is her opponent going to be doing to stop her?
So user has a few kind of holes you can put pressure on. As mentioned, her econ isn't the best, so like if you're able to attack into her, she wants like be initiating to set up her UA, her move to undo things. The more you strike into her, the less she's able to set up, the less cards she has in hand to deal with what you're doing to her. So she has to play defense just as much as anyone else. She doesn't really have many cheese factors going on for her there.
Okay.
Um, and then when you if you are forced onto defense, if you do have to like kind of get ready for what she's doing for gauge, you get to see like what she's threatening. So again, the simplest thing to do is go to a range where she can't do anything to you, and then she'll have to like spend her turn, kind of trying to reestablish herself, and hopefully that gives you time to like find an answer to whatever she's trying to do.
Right. Because, I mean, at some point, she probably is going to be throwing 1 or 2 of these payouts, and you're going to have to deal with them.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
if you have the things that can deal with them, you can deal with them. So stall or play to the point where you have things that can answer some side of her mix up,
yeah.
and and don't let her get those setups for free until then.
Yeah.
Okay.
If just specific things I had to say to watch out for, absolutely do not get hit by over here.
Okay.
Um, especially if like you look at her gauge, there are big numbers in there. You know she's probably setting up for one of these, and this is probably the more
That's the
game
scarier one.
losing one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like filter against this if you have to, filter against this if you have to. Um, ideally, you don't want her to get like her sweep likes engaged because those are a bit harder to defuse usually.
Right.
But yeah, just like try to have answers for like what it looks like her gauge is saying she wants to do.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be like finding them in your deck. Sometimes you just like put down a stat boost and it just doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Because again, she can't like contest +2 speed with just like 1 turn of setup.
Sure. Yeah. And so again, and she strikes into you, you maybe win that strike, and now she's probably going to do the payout. But
Yeah.
you've got some value ahead of time, and you're racing her life bar with yours.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. And you mentioned tech probably superior or Ain't So Lost.
Yep. Uh,
Um,
sometimes you
for
need to deal with this, but it's like just be aware that these might be coming out later if you do.
Sure. For characters who have parry, which Yuzu does not, but for characters who have parry, are there any particular parry targets?
Um, thinking about what people have parried for me, it varies a bit. I think like obviously over here is a big threat. Cacho is big threat in the late game specifically. Uh, I could see you not wanting to deal with Tachi or like just like getting rid of this card entirely ahead of time. But otherwise, she has like so many redundancies. It's kind of hard to like
Okay, yeah,
cover
and you
everything
might
around.
actually have use of that block to block her big 8 damage payout at some point.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, Makes sense. Makes sense. Um, any other counterplay notes you want to specifically highlight?
Um, Not too much. Like she's probably a character that you want to try to like put pressure on before she's able to set up. So uh, if you're on the back foot, she's already going like you kind of just have to try to weather the storm. But if she ever like loses momentum, then it's not like unreasonable to just like take the game back from her.
To just kind of roll her over because she might not have the ability to restart it very easily.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. And obviously, if you can dodge one of her payouts, if
yeah,
you have something that I don't know, if you've got a whirl, like an above curve range 3 button that shuts down a lot of what she can do at range 3, like that's a huge advantage. Use it.
yeah.
Um,
I mentioned earlier, like when users using her sweep, she likes seeing like the answer to sweep again go away from her gauge.
right.
Likewise, if she has like assault and sweep in her gauge, she uses the assault and you're able to like call it out, and you still probably have the answer to sweep on hand. It's like if you're able to like deal with one part of the mix up, then the others probably become easier to deal with.
That makes sense. Okay. So navigating her payout mix-ups, obviously that's going to be important because they represent like 7 or 8 damage twice over the course of the game. That's half your life. So like those are the turns where it's really important to have answers. But
Yeah,
dealing with those, it doesn't sound like is going to be enough to beat her. You are going to have to do things the rest of the time to make progress on her life bar and actually like be proactive in the game. You can't just avoid her payouts.
yeah. If
Okay.
she's like trying to hold on to things for payouts, if she's like trying to build it for that funny assault line, then you probably know she doesn't actually have the assaults in her hand. So
Right.
you can like do a bunch of like more risky mid speeds that would lose to assaults before
Right.
she's able
Yeah.
to like actually flip over.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I think those are my big questions answered about Yuzu. I feel like now I'm an expert. I can go out and confidently throw huge power numbers at my opponent, which will be a good time.
Yep.
Um final question. We got a little bit of time left. This was a little bit of a faster lesson. Um, if somebody who, and I know that you were, hopefully you didn't get distracted teaching me about the character to, because you mentioned at the beginning of the lesson that you uh, were not prepared for this one. If you really, really liked Yuzuriha and you're looking to expand your character base to other characters who play a little bit similar or who scratch that similar itch, do you have any recommendations that other characters that Yuzu fans should check out?
I absolutely did get distracted, but
All right, awesome.
I think the two main things that probably draw you to Yuzu in terms of playstyle are like, or maybe three things are A, just like playing range 3 mix-ups constantly, B, having huge stats numbers, being a stats monster, or C, doing this like little gauge management minigame, which is like maybe simpler than it seems, but like it's nice to think of like your gauge as more than just like something you're building up.
Okay.
So in terms of stat monsters, I know common recommendations like your M Bison, yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh man, I called it out.
Yeah.
Got
I haven't
him.
played
Got
too
him.
much
Got him.
season
Got
three,
him.
but he definitely does have 6 power and 6 speed at various points of the game.
And he plays gauge mini games, and he loves range 3.
Yeah, that is true, actually. So maybe M Bison's probably your top pick here.
They also look identical.
I could believe that. They have
Yep.
purple.
Yep. Yeah. We don't know what Bison's hair looks like under the hat. Maybe it looks like Yuzu's.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe it's the word.
okay. So yeah, and yeah, I definitely agree that those are all things that Yuzu seems like she wants to do. So anybody who's big on the range 3 mix up, anybody who's throwing gigantic power numbers around, sounds like Soul Bad Guy might be somebody that you're kind of interested in.
Yeah, even more. I was in terms of mix. I was thinking like maybe your Ken, your Giovanna,
Okay.
Biken, maybe. That's also kind of like in the stats territory too.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, also all of the characters that you're mentioning, they're this is a loaded term in fighting game context. They're kind of like honest characters. Like not
Yeah.
not to say that they're not incredibly strong and scary because they totally are, but what they're doing is playing Exceed.
Yeah.
It sounds like if you like Yuzuriha, you might like Exceed
Yeah. I think
the
like
characters that play it.
I said at the beginning, Yuzu basically just tries to play neutral, honest, exceed until she decides it's time to stop doing that. So like, depending on which half of that flow you like more, you might kind of lean more towards your M Bisons or your more mix-up oriented characters.
Okay, that all
Like a lot
makes
of them
sense to
mix-up
me.
or like Baiken obviously can make you explode eventually too, but
Oh, definitely.
Ken
You know
too.
what's funny? Actually, Um, every single one of the characters that you mentioned, including Yuzu originally, actually,
Mhm.
is a character that was slated for Blue to teach me.
Oh yeah,
So if you like Yuzu, go on my YouTube channel, search for Blue Llama, uh, find a guide with his name on it. That is a character that you will like.
yeah. I think Blue actually was also slated to Yuzu too. He's said he's a fan of this in terms of season 6 designs.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
He's teaching me Bison fairly soon, I think. He's taught all of
exciting.
these characters. So if Blue likes the character, um, and you like Yuzu, odds are you're going to like any other character that he's talked about.
Yeah. And in terms of the third aspect of like specific cards in your gauge, I don't know if Blue did this, but Ramlethal might be something interesting to look at.
Okay,
You have
sure.
your
Yeah,
fun
Ramlethal
overfishing
was
engine.
a D character, but
I
I do
see.
believe that that Blue has a Ram as well.
Yeah. Uh, Hyde obviously does something similar with like exploding you from gauge, although in a slightly different way.
Sure.
Um, there's probably some season 2 shenanigans going on, but I don't know anything about that.
I mean, this is plenty, right? Like
Yeah,
you got plenty of options here. If you're a big fan of Yuzu, check these characters out. You will find something that you enjoy, hopefully.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
this seat has cool characters.
I think so. The final thought of a lot of these lessons is like, hey, you should play more Exceed. Exceed's pretty fun.
It's true.
Um, yeah. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up, Serp?
I think I talked about everything I had in mind.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah,
Uh, well, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. I really appreciate it. It was a good time talking to you.
glad I was able to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, folks at home, you enjoyed this one. Go play Yuzu. She seems like a good time. I will see you all for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
See you.